Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to episode 10 of season 2 of the Syracuse Sport Business Conference Digital Series. My name is Jack Adler, and I'm the Chief Operations Officer at SSBC, and I will be your host for today's episode. I'm thrilled to welcome on Mr. Tom Weingarten, the head of social media at Overtime, as our 10th guest of the season. If you live under a rock and you don't know what Overtime is, they're the leading brand for the next generation of sports fans. Currently, with more than 50 million followers across all social platforms, averaging more than 1.5 billion views per month. Tom, welcome to the show, and thank you for being here. We're happy to have you.
Yeah, Jack, thank you for having me. And I'm excited for this. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear some insight from one of the faces of personally my favorite sports media brand in Overtime. And there's a lot that I want to cover in this short period of time. So I would love to just get right into it, starting back at the beginning of your career. Back in 2013, you're a basketball and football coach at John Jay High School. You started 2 high school travel basketball teams, all while you were a student. So you didn't even know what Overtime was at this point in time. So I would love if you could just start off by taking us through, I guess, what you envisioned for yourself before you even knew what OT was.
Definitely. Yeah. It's a little bit of a wacky story, honestly. I never, ever would have imagined in a billion years that I would be doing what I'm doing now. So basically, I played sports in high school, like football and basketball mainly, but I loved all sports. Like it was definitely my passion. I knew I wanted to do something in sports. And for me, like growing up, when I thought about sports jobs, I really only thought you either played sports or you coached. Like, I don't know why it never computed to me like, oh, someone's filming that game or someone's broadcasting it. Like I never called those sports jobs. Like I just thought they were something separate. So once I stopped playing sports, I was like, oh, I'm going to become a coach. Like my dad was a coach. I was like, that sounds amazing to me. So, during college, I immediately started to do some of those things. So yeah, like you said, I started a couple of AAU basketball programs that traveled all throughout the Northeast. I was coaching high school football, high school basketball, just to get as much experience as possible and work with different people. And basically, I did that for my first couple of years of college. And going into my junior year, a little bit before, my mom was like, "You need an internship," and I was like, I do not need an internship. Like I work more than any college kid has ever worked. Like I was working 7 days a week around the clock. And she was like, no, come on, you need an internship. So all I did was I Googled sports internships, just thinking like, oh, that's like how you find one. And I skipped to the 50th page of Google. So I skipped the first 49 pages. I was like, no one on these first 49 pages will hire me. And on that day, about an hour earlier, a job posting had been made live for a startup company called Tally. And I applied, not thinking anything of it. I applied to a few other ones and heard back immediately from Allie Nicholas, who's our COO at Overtime. And, we talked on the phone real quickly. They're like, we're starting this new thing. There's only a few of us. We started another company in the past. And I was like, sure, like I'm down to like do some stuff. Like this sounds cool. And literally, that day I met Allie. Dan was the founder, and those are now still like the people that started Overtime. And I've been with them for now 6 years. So it kind of was just a random thing. And as turned from an internship to like, a few months after I started that internship, Dan, our founder, like decided to launch Overtime specifically. And yeah, I've just been doing it ever since.
Wow, that's crazy. And what I find the most fascinating is, the very first Instagram account that you ever created was the Overtime Instagram. You didn't even have a personal Instagram yet, which I find crazy. But I mean, how was that process? Like growing an account from 0 to 5.4 million followers, which you're at now, without even having, like, you had to learn how to use the actual app in this process.
Right. Yeah. Like you said, I didn't have one. I looked at it sometime. I like had some friends at the time who were on there. And basically, we started Overtime because we realized that a lot of sports leagues and a lot of companies were having a hard time reaching a younger generation of sports fans. And we were like, what better to do that than just to go right to them and cover people their age and to do things like that. So we'd started this media company, but we realized very quickly, like none of us were that great at social media. So one night, Allie, who I keep mentioning, she was, I think it was her or maybe someone else was like, hey, there's an NBA finals game tonight. Like we'd love to tweet about it. Do you want to try? And I was like, sure. So I tweeted a couple of times, a couple of them blew up, got 3 retweets. And I was like, oh, like maybe I'm good at this. So yeah, we started the Instagram account. And as far as growing it, like that comes down to a couple of things. One is we started doing things that no one else was doing, right? So it became like, hey, you have to come to Overtime to see this stuff. And that was covering the best high school basketball players in the country, and also covering them not just on the court for high school games, but going to their parks and watching them play like street ball and going to their AAU events and stuff. And we got really lucky working with some athletes who already had a big following. So at the time in New York City, there was Jelly Fam, which was like this group of athletes who formed. They had hundreds of thousands of followers. They started sharing our videos and tagging us, and we started getting all these followers who already followed all these basketball players. And then you think about LaMelo Ball and Zion Williamson, and we filmed all these during athletes, and they started reposting us. But to get there, like, it took some like insane hustle and grind, where I posted every single day ever since I started running the account, like no breaks, 360, like every single day. Sometimes 25 times in a day on that one Instagram account. So being consistent, having a voice, there's so many factors that go into it. But at the beginning, it was really like, hey, how do we create stuff that other people want to share and they aren't seeing on other pages? And then from there, continuing to figure out, okay, this thing works. Let's keep doing it. This didn't work. Let's never do it again. Like I think not having experience actually was probably our greatest strength, because I can look at it and just be like, what do I want to see? And not think about like, oh, this company already did this, or these companies were doing these types of things. I think people fall into this habit of copying other people's pages, and like, maybe they're not doing it right. Like, you got to ask that question.
Yeah. And I mean, you talk about how you had posted several times a day for the last however many years it's been now. And that's got to be that's a lot more work than I think people actually realize. The amount of screen time. I'd love to see your statistics of screen time on your phone, because to be finding the content that not only is it good content, but it's content that people haven't seen, which I know you take pride in, of being an account that gets out the content and people are seeing it for the first time at this account. What can you talk a little bit about the process of actually finding that content and just running the account in general?
Totally. So I'm really lucky now. I have like the best team in the world. And like, we have a group of people who run other overtime accounts, but also spend a lot of time just trying to find content for the overtime pages. And yeah, we have a rule, like, we don't post stuff after the bigger accounts have already posted. So like, we're either first or we're not posting it. So the process, it comes from a lot of different places, but ultimately it's getting on the internet, being on your phone, figuring out who's sharing good stuff, how you can find different things. And it's called curation, right? And it's like curating all of the best stuff. So like, for me personally, like, I spend a lot of time on TikTok. Like, I'm curating there and I'm trying to find videos that have like not a ton of likes, or maybe blew up on TikTok but haven't been shared on Instagram yet. So the process comes down to kind of all of us hustling at all times and always being on our phones and always being around it and figuring out like, hey, here are things that might work, here are things that aren't working. And also I think, and that's hard in the sense that it takes a lot of time, but once you're in the rhythm and stuff, it's relatively, a skill that you can pick up, which I think is good, and you can perfect it. I think where overtime stands out is, yes, we're first at finding those like viral clips and filming a lot of those viral clips, but where we're also really good at is like figuring out what's popular right now. Like when Kanye's dropping a new album, what we realized as a group really early on was like, for those moments, like, we saw a lot of bigger pages posting about it like 3 or 4 days after the fact. For us, like, we're counting down, like, when is the Kanye album dropping, or when is this happening? So being really relevant is really important to us. So just keeping our ear to the internet and just figuring out what's going to do best.
Yeah, and you're talking about, posting for Donda, posting different things in culture that aren't necessarily sports. And you are a sports media brand, but while you guys are a sports page, you're not only posting sports content. And I'm curious, first off, how non-sports content performs on your page compared to sports content, because obviously most of your followers are sports first type of people. And also what the exact strategy is behind that in terms of building the brand.
Yeah, it's good. You should come to one of our debates and like internally figuring out kind of how that goes. It's interesting because, like you said, we started as a sports company and really sharing that stuff. And that is still our core, like 100%, obviously. And it depends which page you go to. I think the reason why we have, for anyone who doesn't know, we have a bunch of pages specifically on Instagram, right? There's overtime, which is very broad, can share anything. But then there are sports specific pages. So if you go like overtime season, that's football focused, FC, that's soccer focused. So we do make sure we still keep the sports like at the forefront, and it is still the core even on our overtime page. But there's a couple of ways we do it. So one, we realize, hey, the more we can post and the more we can broaden our audience, the more followers we can get. Because even though we don't have every basketball fan in the world following us, most basketball fans know who we are. But like, how do we tap into like fans from other areas and get them to follow us? So that was kind of the thought process behind it. But then how do you do it successfully? Our big thing was, as we started to introduce new things, whether that's a new sport, football, soccer, or it's a new type of content, so like music or fashion, in the beginning stages, we really tried to relate it back to basketball in some way. So whether it's, maybe the first time we shared music, it was like, this is what Steph Curry listens to. And it's like a way for people to be like, oh, it's part of basketball, and start to kind of some of
interesting.
That. And then, or the caption would be about basketball. We would ask like, what do you listen to before a game? So there's always that way of like, hey, let's make it relatable for our athletes. But then as time goes on, like, they're all one in the same culture. Like most basketball fans, like, they listen to music, like, and they're into this and they're into that.
Exactly.
When you think about athletes, like if you're like, I was an athlete, like I didn't only care about sports growing up. So, it's very easy for us to blend those things. And it's important for us to be part of that conversation. Yes, we're a sports company, but for me, thinking about our social and our whole entire social team, we're thinking like, we were after a younger fan, and it depends, whatever they care about is what we're going to care about. And if that's the Jake Paul fight, which is, and we talked about it on our call earlier, like a lot of our non-sports or non-basketball content is actually our highest performing stuff. And you have some flops, like it's either going to go to the moon or it's going to be your worst thing. They either like it or they either really love that we're going outside the box, or they absolutely hate it. But more times than not, we're able to blend that line and just find out what people care about. So it's done really well. I think it's one of the best decisions we made, is to be more broad.
Yeah, and it's crazy because, like I said, while Overtime is a sports brand, what you guys have done by posting other content really has built your brand, because you're not only going there to find the best content in basketball, it's now expanded so much further than that. And I mean, that's one of Overtime's superpowers, being able to post a lot of everything. But another one why I think Overtime is personally one of my favorites is really just the brand voice that the account has built out. I know that it's an emphasis point for you guys to speak with a certain type of voice, whether it be in captions, in comment sections, even in DMs. And I would love if you could just dive deeper into like that actual brand strategy that you guys have formulated on social media, and really the relationship that you've tried to build and have built with your followers through that brand voice.
Definitely. So it's definitely a point of emphasis for us. And I think I would say a lot of times it's like the first thing people ask me about, which is really cool. It wasn't something that we sat back and we were like, hey, like, what should our brand voice be? Like, it really wasn't. We had conversations about it in the early days, but I think the biggest thing is we wanted it to feel authentic, and we wanted it to feel real, and to feel like people could relate to it. I think now looking back on it, the reason why it worked was, think about big pages, and a lot of the biggest pages in the world are actually people, not brands. Like a lot more people follow artists than follow like, the rap page and stuff like that. And that still holds true. But why is that? I think as fans, especially like younger fans, you're much more drawn to people and individuals than you are to like big, broad brands or pages. So we wanted to fit that mold as much as possible. So we did a lot of different things to make us feel like people. And the biggest thing, and this is like a hard thing that we did in the beginning, is we really gave full ownership to individuals. So for instance, like I mentioned, like I'm the only one that for a really long time published the Overtime page. So I made it feel like my personal page. Like if I'm going through a breakup, like the captions and the content should look like that. If I'm having the best day ever, like I want people to see that. I remember when we were first starting, I was actually in the middle of a pickup basketball game, and a sick dunk came through from another location that someone sent me. And I made the caption like, yo, I just got a quick water break in the middle of pickup. Like, I'll change this later. And the comments were insane. Like, they're like, are you really playing pickup? Like, we want an update. While the video was also crazy of someone else. So making it feel like a person and feel relatable, and going to that as much as possible. So I did this, and now our whole entire team does this. It's like, pour your whole entire self into that page, and make the captions and the comments. And like, sometimes we'll just make a caption like a billion random letters, because like, I don't know, sometimes when I'm frustrated, I just like will text someone like, blah, 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 like just whatever it is. So that's a lot of it, but also obviously a big part of it is we have really creative people on the team who are able to come up with different 15, 20 different captions every single day and different types of content, figure out how to relate it to things. So, a lot of times in social, you got to kind of make it your life and really dive in there. I think you can get more personality out of it that way. So it's hard, but I think it's worth it in the long run.
I think like the word that comes to mind is authenticity. Like you guys are completely authentic, and it's one of the things I admire the most about it, and like why I love the brand so much. And it's something that I've tried to replicate in brands that I've run on social, and it has a way of connecting with your followers, and that's why it's so special. And I seriously do think that is the reason why Overtime has been able to continue growing the brand to where it is now.
Yeah, what I do try to think about is like what's the other side, right? Like why do brands not make it feel more personal and not do that? I think it's because it's hard, and it's a little scary. But yeah, I think for the most part, it definitely is a really strong path, because like you're just going to build that connection. And even though we have a ton of followers, we don't have the most followers on the internet, but I do think we have the most engaged, where people are commenting and they want to have conversations. And one big thing we've done to keep up with that and build community and like build that voice is like every 6 months or so, like we come up with something different than we've been doing. So like for 6 months, we posted really weird content like after midnight. Like you never knew what you were going to get. Like some days it was a spider, some days it was like people, like it was just random. And people started being like, what's Overtime doing after midnight? A thing before that was like we started replying to every single comment in the caption, replying to every single comment in the comment section. But instead of doing your typical like normal conversation, we actually just started roasting people, like really going hard and like roasting them. So keeping people on their toe, and like, so we try to come up with different stuff every like few months or 6 months or a year to kind of be different and keep people on their toes. And I think never getting stagnant is really important when it comes to voice to make it feel more authentic.
Yeah. And like when you were talking about like why don't other people do it, like I'm thinking probably because it's risky. Like it could come off as unprofessional and you could lose people through it. But at the end of the day, your Overtime was a startup. You guys had nothing to lose. An account like ESPN, they have everything to lose. They can get in like I think that's where it comes from. And Overtime having that leverage as having nothing to lose is really what has probably given you guys the ability to kind of go out and have the freedom to like create a voice for yourself that isn't corporate and professional.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think so. And yeah, I think we see more people try it, which is great also.
Yeah. And one really cool thing that you guys do that I want to talk a little bit about is having the personalities create their social handles as Overtime Tom, Overtime Larry, Overtime Megan. And you guys have created these personalities, and now your personal brand is fully becoming a part of that. And I wanted to hear first off about how it actually originated. And for what I know, I think it's you guys were like the first ones to do it, because now people are copycatting you guys, and I see some companies out there doing the same type of thing. But how did that come to be in the first place?
Yeah, I wish there was a better story for it. There's not. The way that we got to the name Overtime is probably a better story than anything. But the way we got to putting in our usernames is I think it was me and then Dante, who he's one of our best videographers. If anyone that really covers Overtime, he made the Mikey Williams show and he's filmed and edited all of it. Like he's the best editor, like when it comes to basketball stuff that you'll find. I don't remember if it was me or him, one of the two of us. We just did it randomly. I think it was me. We were filming a show and I think I was feeling uncomfortable saying my last name on camera or something. So I was like, I'm just gonna call myself Overtime Tom. And I said it on camera and like someone laughed and I was like, again, I had no personal Instagram presence. So I was like, I'm just gonna change it to Overtime Tom, like whatever.
It has a ring to it.
Yeah. And then Dante, he changed it to Overtime Tay. And that also has a ring to it. And then Larry, Overtime Larry, like, and then people started to do it. And we had that small core for a while. And then as we got bigger, more people were like, honestly, I think some people just thought they were supposed to do it. Like, oh, if I hired by Overtime, I'm supposed to do this. I'll give you two different kind of examples. So it's been cool to see the company and people like embrace that and want to be part of it. It is not mandatory in any way. I get one question in interviews all the time, like when I interview people to like get hired at Overtime, they're like, so do I have to change my username? Or like how long? So that's one question. I also get, how long do I have to wait until I'm allowed to change my handle? It's like, you can change it before we hire you. Like no one, and we get a lot of fans actually who do it now where like there's an Overtime this person, Overtime that person. So it's really cool. And like, yeah, there's once in a while people will make their name and pretend that they like work at Overtime or pretend that they're running an Overtime account, and we have to like ask them to change it. But for the most part, it's so cool to just see like so many Overtime people and Overtime handles. And you never know, like they might work for Overtime, they might just be a big fan, they might be an athlete, like it's all different. So there's not an insane story of how it started, but like the ripple effect has been really cool.
And it's just huge for the brand. Like, for example, Overtime Megan, I know, has created a brand for herself, but being like the people that she's bringing in, like they filter right through to Overtime. So I think that's the really cool aspect of it also.
Definitely. It really helps. I mean, Megan is an amazing like talent and influencer on her own, right? Like she would grow big no matter what, but definitely having that connection to OT helps for people to be like, oh yeah, like she was like, we have a lot of crossover in our audience, right?
Yeah.
And even for like people who work, even for like myself, like people follow me because like are more likely to follow me because I have Overtime in my name. We've seen people grow followers just because they have Overtime in their username.
Yeah.
So there's definitely, like you mentioned, like people can, it's got recognition and it helps. And then, you know, when you work with someone like Megan and Larry, who have built huge followings on their personal pages, they're just awesome to see that crossover. And, you know, people follow Megan and they find Overtime, and people follow Overtime and they find Megan, and it's really cool to see. So I love it. I think that it's so powerful to see the comments and see people do it. So it's really great.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. And it's one of like just a cool branding tool that Overtime has that was very unique, and it's kind of gotten stolen by others because of how cool it is.
Yeah, I mean, now people are getting a little competitive though, because as we hire more people, sometimes their name's taken. So like
Yeah.
Overtime Alex, if you're listening, there's another Alex who wants your username real bad, and like
Yeah, that's the
people are
issue.
getting competitive. So no, it's not it. They come up with different ways to do it. I'm lucky I have my name.
Yeah, that's just the issue with Instagram in general now. Like every username's taken. It's impossible to create a new account.
Yep.
But taking it back a little bit to the starting point of your time with Overtime, I know that you said you spoke with the founder, the COO, to get hired for an internship. So you started as an intern. I'm curious to hear what that experience was like, actually rising the ranks and really just working at the beginning stage of what it is now. And then I want to also hear about the workplace culture at Overtime, because I've heard really good things about it, and I would love to hear your perspective on it.
Totally. So I'd say with the internship thing, like probably my greatest strength was I had no idea what an internship was. I thought like I have a job. Like I
Yeah.
didn't really look at it another way. So yes. So when I started, again, my internship was actually part of a company that wasn't called Overtime, and we eventually turned it. It was actually a company that was working on a few different projects. It was called Tally, and we were working on a few different projects, a few different apps, and one of them was Overtime, and that was the main one I was focusing on. But we actually had a lot of different things that we were kind of working on, and my main job at the start was like just post to the app, like just make some posts, and like that, it was it. And I did it and I liked it, and I felt like I was doing a better job than a lot of the other people. So again, the company was only, I think, 3 or 4 people at the time who were full-time, like Ali, Dan, Dan's our founder and CEO, Ali's our COO. We had a few developers. And I kind of was like, look, I'm having a lot of fun here. Like, can I come in and meet the team and like see the office? And I did that. And after a few weeks, I did that, and I went in and I met Ali down in New York City, which is about 2 hours from where I live. And down there, I was like, can I do more? Like, I'm not worried about the money or anything. Like, I'm having fun. Like, can I like do more stuff? And that turned into me being an in-office intern. And what that was like, that was the craziest experience of my life, because I started running the social channels. And then working really closely for our other co-founder, Zach. And I was basically like his right-hand person. Like anything he needed done, like I did it. Like at the time, we wanted to build out, like we've done so many things that didn't work. I don't think that can be like stated enough. Like one of my jobs was, we want to make a directory of every single frat in the USA, like every single frat's email. We want to have just like an email list. So if we want to send gear, if we want to find writers, or if we want to do different things, like we have this email list to blast out. So I went to every single college, every single frat, every single Facebook page, and I made like this, it was like 5,000 thing long like spreadsheet. And then we were like, hey, let's go run a dunk contest in the middle of Union Square, which is like a popular place in New York City. And I built a mini hoop, and I brought a hoop out, and we filmed it and like did a bunch of random. So like we tried everything from going to games, to talking to leagues, to talking to people. So I got to experience every part of the company. Hey, let's make a t-shirt. Okay, let's make a t-shirt. I got to do everything because we were such a small company. So although I was an intern, I really felt like a full-timer, more than a full-timer. I was working so much time on it, spending so much time on it. So my experience as an intern was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I got so much experience trying so many things, and there wasn't a ton of like pressure in a sense coming from other people, because we were so small, we had nothing to lose. But I'm someone that applies a lot of internal pressure, and I was like, this has to be perfect. Like we just have to do a good job. And I'll never forget, one of my first internship projects was making that dunk contest thing that I just spoke about. And like I spent a Friday night making like a 13-page write-up expressing like every single detail that we should do and everything. And I sent it to Dan, our CEO, and he was like, this is amazing. Like, thank you for doing this. I literally spent probably like 24 hours on it. Just go do it. And like, that's the most like positive thing. So like, one, I probably didn't have to write up 13 pages and get that, but having the ability to just go out and try stuff and do things, like
that freedom.
Yeah. And like, it really ties into what your second question was about, like culture. Like the startup, I didn't even know what a startup was like at all. Again, like I probably haven't said it enough, but I didn't know much at all. I wanted to be a basketball coach. I wasn't a great student at all. I worked really hard at the things I was passionate about. And once I became passionate about overtime, like that's really what happened for me. And being an intern and seeing how, like, the real thing for me was I got to be really close to the people who started the company. And what I realized really quickly was like, these are some of the smartest people I've ever met. They're very accomplished, and they're really nice. Like they're really good people. And I was like, I kind of just want to work with people like that. Like that was important for me. Some people, it's more important to like day one make $1 zillion. Some people, it's really important to have a cool title. Some people, like, you want to be in an established company. For me, it was like, I want to work with people I really like and respect. And I want to have the opportunity to like be in control of some stuff, like have the pressure on me. And they allowed that from day one, like, just really giving me an opportunity. And they didn't have to, like, at all. I was just like a college kid who didn't know much. So from there, that's how our culture started. And I'll probably get back to that. Like our culture, like there is nothing that I value more at Overtime than our company culture. Like you could take the Instagram account, I don't care. Like, but if you like mess with our culture, like I'm not letting that happen. Like it's the best culture I could possibly think of. And again, I think it started from day one, from that openness to like let people try things and to not be so critical and to give people the opportunity to fail. And when they do fail, like I think one great thing that is understated is like when people mess up or people fail, especially at Overtime, like you knew that you like did something, right? That wasn't perfect. And no one ever beat you up on that. It was like, okay, like how do we make it better? Like what can we do now to like do better next time or to fix it? Like there's always that attitude of like, how do we fix this? How do we do a better job? And that type of like nurturing, like people being so kind and being so open and welcoming, it's carried on now from those first 5 employees to now we have over 200 people. And I constantly get feedback like, damn, everyone's so nice. We had someone today, it's her second week at Overtime, and she just made like an awesome video. Like you guys will see it. It's a Drake video. It's amazing. Her name's Maya. And she literally just texted me like, I love working here. And like that, there's nothing that makes me happier than that. So it's very collaborative, very like anyone can talk to anyone. Like you can hit up Dan, our CEO, at midnight, and like he might respond or he might answer the next day, and you could be like, have just been hired like yesterday. Like it doesn't matter, like as far as that type of stuff. Especially on the social team for I feel like it's probably came across, but on social, you're on nonstop. It's very 24/7. Like, and when you work with people 24/7, like you got to like them. Like you have to feel some passion towards it. And we've tried to do that by just, really respecting each other. And you don't have to be best friends with everyone you work with, but it really helps if you are. And I'm really lucky that the people I work with are like my best friends. So yeah, I don't know, but I could talk about culture all day. It's amazing. And it's I'm most proud of it over time for sure. And it's something that we continue to work at. Like it's how do we make it better always.
And I mean, just in general, how important would you say culture is to the success of a company?
I think it's really important, especially in a startup, right? Because like in a startup, think about it, like you're gonna have to make a lot of sacrifices and you're gonna have to work really hard to break through. And you're also gonna make a lot of mistakes. And like if your culture is one that encourages people to work to be collaborative and be pumped and like be kind to each other, everyone can relate to this. Like you're much more likely to work harder for someone that you respect and someone you like and someone that cares about you than you are for someone who's a jerk to you. And so I think especially in a startup, like when you are going to have to grind so hard, like you have to have people that you respect and that you appreciate. I relate overtime a lot to like a really good sports team. Like if you think about all of the great sports teams, if you played or if you watch good teams, like there's incredible leadership. You have all-star, like top of the notch talent, but then probably the most important thing is you have people who are really good at knowing their role and where they fit in. And there's like incredible teamwork. And I think overtime, like is honestly just like a huge, awesome sports team where like everyone knows everyone fits in, everyone appreciates each other, respects each other, and works super hard.
Yeah, and the reason I asked that question is because I do think it's a little almost underrated how important culture is to success. Like even talking about sports, like you just don't necessarily see the same success in a team that has bad culture, and it's the same way for companies. Like if there's a startup that doesn't have that chemistry, culture, passion, and like leadership, it's not going to go as far as a company that does.
100%. And like especially now, like everyone's starting things and a lot of things are similar or overtime is a lot different, but there are other sports media companies, there's other startups. And I think obviously we're really creative and I think we have like really great people, but I think our culture and our ability to like push each other in the right way is what takes us to the next level. And to be able to find like now, like having that reputation, like you can bring on better people, like people want to join that. And like, that can be a differentiator for why someone wants to work with us as opposed to someone else. So yeah, I think it's so important. I know that it's been the biggest impact on me personally. And, we've had people who have come to overtime from really successful companies. And after a few months be like, I'm a better person here, like not a better worker. Like they don't talk about their job. Like, no, I'm like a better person from being here. So I hope that doesn't sound like bragging. It's just really important to us. And I think it's like what we like. I just can't express how important I think it is.
I think that's I think it's really, really cool. And I'm also curious how you keep that culture because obviously there's always the possibility that a bad seed comes in and
Totally.
how do you make sure that you're hiring the right people? How can you read someone well enough to know when they are the right person for the culture in an interview?
100%. And so I will get to that. I think the reason why it's been easy is the first people we had were just naturally like that, right? It's not like
The leaders.
yeah, it's hard to be like fake nice like for years.
Yeah.
So having people that are like genuinely great people, like Zach, like Dan, like Ali has made that easy at the start, and made us be able to set the culture the way it is. And then because like you can come up with all of the like, oh, let's go to a happy hour, let's do this after work, but like it has to be natural and genuine for it to like really stick. And then as we hire now, one, I think we're in a really good place right now that like we have so many good people that if a bad like it's almost impossible for a bad seed to come in and like be that way, if that makes sense. Like you're working with 20 people on the social team and 19 of them are like the nicest people you ever met and you're not. Like that is like, that's hard to do.
Yeah.
But in the middle years, like when we're first starting to grow, we had to be really careful and serious about who we hired. And like, I can speak for firsthand experience. Like I had a social role open. It's now filled by Peter Olson. He's the best, and I want to shout his name out. But we had his role open before we hired him for about 18 months. I interviewed a ton of people and didn't hire anyone for about 18 months because I was like, I have to find the right person. Like I can't. So I know that I personally was really picky, and as a company, we were pretty picky, and like we really went through it and met with them. And, I think that is really important. And, I don't know if we talked about it, like, hey, we have to spend a lot of time here in order to make this right. But it was definitely, we definitely felt that way and definitely acted that way.
So kind of changing topics here. I'm surprised that we've gone now 40 minutes and haven't really gone deeper into TikTok, which for overtime has, like, you guys have done an insanely great job of taking advantage of just the opportunity that platform provides. And I'm amazed by what TikTok is able to do just for the regular person and even for a brand. So can you talk about TikTok? And you guys now have 17.6 million followers, which surpassed your Instagram, which was already up amongst one of the most successful sports media brands. I mean, what has TikTok done for the company, and how are you guys going to continue using it to build?
Yeah, TikTok is, I mean, it's insane. I think probably the audience listening to this loves it the way I do. I do love TikTok, and I think it's probably one of the crazier things that I've seen in social, since getting into the world of it. The growth of Overtime's TikTok is actually pretty simple. We're always the company that wants to try new things. Like we've tried other apps too, and they didn't work. But for TikTok specifically, it was like, hey, we're hearing about this app. There's some people growing on it. And, Dan, our CEO, and then Mark, who's our chief content officer, they were like, why don't let's give it a shot? Like, sure. So we tried it for like a week. It didn't really work. The app was kind of bad. Videos weren't doing well. So we kind of put it away for a little. And then we kept hearing about it. And myself and a couple of people, we took a crack at posting some things, and they blew up. Like, and I'm just talking like random, like basic basketball highlights that we had posted on other platforms already. They blew up, and we're like, whoa, like this is great. Like we could use this boost. But still, like, and even to this day, we do not spend a ton of time making content for TikTok. For the first, year and a half, I would say for the overtime TikTok, I was spending less than 20 minutes a day on it and got it to 10 million followers. And the main thing was understanding what did well on there and understanding kind of that other people weren't on there yet. And we had some advantages. One big thing that overtime is good at for TikTok is what we talked about in the beginning. Like speed is really important on TikTok, like how fast, the way their algorithm's set up. Let's say we post an insane LaMelo Ball dunk. If we don't post it first, TikTok punishes you, where that doesn't happen on other platforms. So like if we post the same video that Sports Center and Ball is Life and another page already posted, it will do nothing on overtime, even though we have 17 million followers. That's the way that their algorithm works. But if you're first, it can do really well. And that's why you see people who have 10 followers, all of a sudden they have a video with 3 million views. You're like, what? Like that's the power of TikTok, is like that it rewards people that are really fast. So it fit right into what our world is, right? Whereas
exactly.
Let's just be like, we're already first. Let's just keep doing it. So we had this awesome quick growth. We beat everyone else, like a lot of the other big pages to it. Looking back, like this is gonna sound insane, but I wish we did even more. Like I wish we had, like, I think we could have had 40 million followers by now. And like that happens, like, that's everyone would say that about new pages and stuff, but I always want more, of course. But our thought process on it was like, when we first got on there, honestly, like there was only influencer, like individual people posting. There actually weren't any companies posting on it. Like, so it was kind of hard because we were like, oh, do we need we come from the world where we post a lot of highlights and a lot of like videos of athletes doing stuff. TikTok was more like, it was only dancing at the time and stuff. And we were like, is our stuff really going to work? And what we found was like, hey, like we can create this whole entire other category on this app. So posting highlights and stuff like actually really worked for us. And it's not what TikTok's known for. TikTok's still known for the dances and the skits and the influencers, but those things still worked for us. And I think that some people were like, hey, you're not treating TikTok the way TikTok wants to be treated. But I was like, the views speak for itself. And so we had a lot of success on there. We had videos hit like 200 million views and 100 million views and 70 million views. And we just saw really quick growth. I mean, I think we grew 1 million followers in one day once, or in like 48 hours. So the growth was insane. And now the power of TikTok extends way past it, right? Like you look at half of our Instagram posts, they actually come from TikTok. You look at some of our YouTube titles and some of our Snapchat things are actually coming from TikTok. So it's had a really big influence on us, and an influence on our audience. And I think what you'll see from us now is start to use our talent more in those videos. And, TikTok just expanded to have 3-minute videos. So figure out how to do some longer form stuff. And, I think for them, they don't see themselves as like short dancing app. They see themselves as the next YouTube where they can create long, engaging content, or the 3-minute YouTube, the 3-minute Netflix, where people come to them to watch those shorter things, but still have some length and some heart to it. So it's been amazing. We have, I think, 5 of the biggest 20 sports accounts on the whole entire app. Over time, it's, I think, probably still the most liked sports TikTok account on the app. We have billions of likes, obviously over 17 million followers. And, my goal on there would be for Overtime to be the most followed sports account on one platform. So I think there's some sports Instagram accounts that have like 20, 25 million followers. I'd like for Overtime's TikTok to pass those, for us to kind of stand at the top. So yeah, a lot of stuff to come on it. It's still early.
A lot.
So
that's cool. What's crazy about TikTok. It's still so early, and it is insane how much it has evolved in just the last couple of years, even just the last year, starting with it being just like Charli D'Amelio dancing. Now it's like, if you're not on it, you live under a rock, especially as a company. Like you said, there just weren't that many companies on it. And now it's like, you need to be on it. You don't have a choice.
100%. Do you find that people your age I still find that some people, specifically guys, are a little hesitant to get on there to even like watch stuff, but do you think it's like fully changed?
There was a ton of hesitancy at first. And I think what it was quarantine. Like people had to try it out because they were just that bored. And
right,
it's addicting. Like it's hard once you get on, it's hard to get off. Like a lot of people really did kind of fall in love with it, and especially since it caters towards what you like, it's like if you stay on there long enough, you're going to start getting more and more stuff that you actually want to see.
It's amazing how many people have come to me after like an hour and been like, I hate TikTok, and I'll be like, give it 2 days,
just wait.
And it will create everything for you. And like my sister is the biggest example of that. Like she was like, I hate this. And I was like, just give it 2 days. And like now she's on it nonstop. I'll be curious to see with it. Like as they like, I think it's really powerful. That has one awesome feature, right? You can just scroll and watch videos, and they're going to add stories soon. They've added 3-minute video. I'm curious if as they add more things, if that will actually deter people, like the way that's happened sometimes on a Facebook, on a Snapchat sometimes.
Yeah, and just as these companies grow, they start trying new things, and people don't like change. So
I'm curious. It'd be cool.
They always get backlash. All right, so with these last 15 minutes, I do have a bunch of questions that have flowed in from the audience that I want to get to. So I'm just going to read off a few questions that I have, read the name of the student that asked it, and just read it off, and you can give your answer. So first, we got a question from Sam Holland. He said, Overtime does a great job of appealing to the younger target audience. When crafting captions and in-video text, what is the process in diction and using words that continuously resonate with the audience?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to those types of videos and everything, it depends on what it is. Again, what I want from our team to do as much as possible is just do it in their own words and do it in their own voice and try to figure out what works there. I mean, yes, there are always words that like pop up that become really cool and stuff, right? Like that, right? I mean, like I'm trying to think of different things that people have used in the past, and they had overused, right? Like, I think swag was a word that was like used a lot more like at one point, and there's always those types of things. So we'll hop on some of those, but overall, it's like we just try to talk it in our own voice. And how we decide it is we try to say like, would I say this to my friend if we were like out at a party or like if I was like hanging out with them, if my parents said, like, would my parents say this? Like, we don't want that, obviously. Like, we want to feel
Yeah.
like younger and stuff. So it's that, but it's also being in the world and living in that world. Like, we go to a lot of games, we're on TikTok, we're on that stuff. And, it becomes part of just how I think our team is and how we think about it. As far as what we're looking for, though, like, I want people to stop and read what we have to say. So like when it comes to like words on a video, we're going to keep it short and concise, but like really pop and like really make it someone stop and be like, oh, damn, like that's interesting. And then as far as the caption goes, similar thing. It's a little bit longer, but it's like, how can I add something? One thing that social media people struggle with sometimes is like the difference between a comment and a caption. Like you might have something really, really clever and like it's super smart and like it's awesome, but it might be confusing as a caption. It's better as a comment. And we've worked through a lot of that where it was like, maybe we're being too like witty in some of our captions. Let's make those comments and let's be a little bit more broad and appeal to more people in the captions and make them feel like they're a part of it.
Interesting. Because yeah, the caption really does either add a lot to the post or kind of make it somewhat irrelevant, because if it's a summary basically of what you're posting and that will catch the eye of the audience.
Totally.
All right, so I'm interested to hear your answer to this one from Brian Wallace, talking about the Overtime Elite League that you guys are starting up. He's wondering what makes the Overtime League different from G League or college for players.
Totally. Great question. Yeah, we didn't even talk a ton about OTE yet, but
Yeah.
that's our new sports league where we are taking 24 top athletes and, we're bringing them to Atlanta where they'll get top level education. They're actually gonna get paid and top level training to further their career and with the goal of becoming professional basketball players. But the biggest difference is we're actually working with younger athletes. So our league is compiled of 16 to 18-year-olds. And in regards to the G League, like the biggest difference is one, like I said, they're younger, but also we offer like full education. Like that's actually one of the biggest parts of what OTE is. And it's your classic academics, but also mixed in with like mental wellness and financial literacy and a ton of different things that will really help them in the classroom, but also as they become professional athlete, or if they are professional athletes once they sign with us, but as they continue their professional career, be in a really good place to succeed there. And then college, obviously the difference again is that we just are working with younger athletes. So that's the biggest difference. We have a much more controlled league as of now, where there's only 24 players, which is amazing. And I think, it's really the cream of the crop, the top, like the best kids you can find who are getting ready to get to that next level. And I think what you'll see a difference also is just in the content we're putting out around them and really building them up that way. They'll obviously get amazing education, amazing athletics, but then also building them up content wise and through their social followings and everything like that, where kind of the total package. So I think it's a lot different in what we're offering that way. And obviously the type of athlete we're offering.
Yeah. And I think that leads in really well to this next question from Sam Borg. Can you explain how the new NIL rules have changed and will change the way Overtime showcases student athletes?
Yeah. I mean, we couldn't be happier that is starting to happen. And I hope it continues to happen as quickly as it feels like it is. Sometimes obviously, like we're kind of at the forefront of it, and with the creation of OTE, like we wanted athletes to get paid. We have had this idea for a couple of years now and launched the league, several months before NIL became a thing. So it's obviously like we have been promoting it, we've been wanting it. As far as how it works with the college athletes currently, it's something that we're really passionate about. We started a fund with $1 million to pay college athletes and to get into our NIL system. We've already begun working with Sayer Wright, who is a football player at USC. He was also in the Space Jam movie with LeBron, and he's like our first athlete that we're doing NIL stuff with. So I think you'll see us pop up a lot in the NIL world of working with different athletes from, and a lot of different sports too. I know for me personally, like I'm really passionate about working with the women's college basketball players and how big their social followings are and how their personalities on the court and off the court. So it's amazing that change happened, and you'll find over time working with a lot of those athletes in the content space, potentially in the lifestyle space, and helping them with clothing and a bunch of different ways. But But our biggest thing is we want to make an impact with whatever we do. We don't want to just say like, oh, here's the NIL thing. We want to really figure out a way to help the college athletes.
Yeah, and I honestly, like, when I thought of NIL at the very beginning, like, Overtime is just a brand that comes to mind, and alignment with it. It just makes sense for you guys with the experience and the history you guys have with working with high school athletes and kind of growing their brands. I can only see it being beneficial to OT.
Definitely. Yeah. I love it. I hope that I know that we'll make like a big dent as it continues.
It's really cool also just being a college student at this time that all this is going on too. Now that
You're doing some stuff with them too, right?
yeah. With SSBC, we're actually hoping to bring on some college athletes and talk about their experience with name, image, and likeness.
Very cool. It's awesome. Yeah. I mean, Cuse is a great place to do it at.
Exactly. So a couple more questions here. We got one from Connor Silva. What has been the biggest struggle in growing the Overtime brand?
Biggest struggle. I think one, like our struggles have it's interesting because a lot of times when you struggle, it actually leads to like the greatest output and the greatest experience, right? And when you do get through it, like there's no better feeling. Like it's not as fun when something's easy. So I think just breaking into the space and having people like realize that we're legitimate, because since we like the reason we have such an engaged audience and why we have such a big audience is because like we're pretty chill and like we let people into our lives. And like, you know, you talked about the bigger brands about like the professionalism. We're obviously super professional, but like in a laid back world. So having people like realize that like we're legit and like, you know, allow like, and fighting against maybe, you know, people that have tradition and are used to doing things. You know, I remember when we first started covering high school athletes, like a big thing was like athletic directors around the whole entire world being like, what do you mean you want to come in and film it for social media? Like, what's your newspaper? Like, what's your, you know, website or whatever it was? And we're like, no, like we want to post on our Instagram. And like that education part, like it's frustrating. You're like, I don't want to have to explain this. Like, I just want to be able to do it. So that's always hard, but yeah, I don't know. I you know, obviously we've had a ton of struggles in this fact that it's hard. But I think one, you know, going back to the culture, like we just kind of always push through and just always focus on like, hey, like this is the goal at the end of the day. So, you know, we laugh at like a lot of our mistakes or things that we tried that didn't work. Like it never feels wasted. So I think it's hard. It's hard to call something a struggle when it doesn't feel wasted. So obviously we've had a lot, but overall we've always pushed through.
Exactly. And just with the startup culture in general, you're going to have struggles and failures. And like you said, it kind of just leads to the biggest successes in the end. All right. So one final question to wrap it up. I think this is a good one to wrap it up. You kind of have hit on it throughout the entire time, but just to hit on it one more time, a question from Ben Alfano. What would you say makes Overtime unique and stand out in comparison to these other sports media accounts?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. It is a good one to land on. I think the thing that makes us stand out is the authenticity at the end of the day. And just having our audience feel a part of everything. Like I probably haven't said this word enough, but everything comes from our community. Like the decisions we make, to what we're building, to the social channels, the stuff we post, like all we care about is if our community likes it. Like it really doesn't matter if I like something. Like I'm listening to our community, and we've been able to grow a community that really cares about what we're doing as a company, as individuals. And you know, they want to be a part of it. And what does being a part of it mean? It just means like that you're involved in what Overtime does, and you show love, and that you're great to other people, and you care about sports, and you care about what's going on. So I think that's our biggest differentiator is we've been authentic, and that's allowed us to grow a real community that like will buy our gear and want to rep it and want to be it. And like Jalen Suggs was just like the number 6 pick in the draft, and his sister like dressed up as an Overtime iPhone filmer for Halloween. Like those types of things, like no one's doing that for other companies. So the community and the authenticity, I think that's one thing. And I think the second part is just like how we tell athletes stories. Like I know that you can get a lot of content from other companies about athletes, but I don't know if any other company goes as deep as we do when it comes to like our long form YouTube and Snapchat shows. And you know, I mentioned Jalen Suggs, like we worked with Jalen Suggs all throughout high school, and like continue to work with him, and like, and he's just one of the countless athletes where we get to tell his story, his or her story, and like hear where they're coming from and what they're going through, and how other high school athletes or other college athletes can relate to what they're going through. I think that it is authentic, right? It does come back to that, but like being able to tell athletes stories has been something where like we want to put that at the forefront. We want people to know who these athletes are and what they're about. And I think we've been able to master that a little bit, and continue to do a good job there.
Yeah, totally. And you've 100% done a good job there, and that's the reason why you guys are only continuing to grow in success. And it was really, really cool to be able to learn a little more behind the scenes of Overtime, which is one of the fastest growing and best sports media brands out there. So Tom, thank you a ton for your time today. I'm sure everyone in here enjoyed it and took a lot from it. And it was awesome getting to take some of your time today to speak about OT.
Thank you, man. This was great, and I love what you guys are doing. I know you've had some awesome guests, and I'll definitely check out the future ones for sure.
Yeah, much appreciated, man. It was awesome. Thank you for your time, and I'm hyped to stay in touch and see what's next for Overtime.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
All right, man. Have a good one.
See ya.